A fantastic 100 from Chris Rogers has given his Middlesex side a chance of creating history on the last day of the enthralling LV County Championship match at Lords against Yorkshire, for whom Gary Ballant smashed his 4th 100 in his last 7 championship matches. The visitors were well on top at the start of the penultimate day, with them on 213 for 4 in their second innings with a lead of 268. And it may not have concerned them too much when their night watchman, Stephen Patterson, edged Neil Dexter to a juggling Derby Milan in the morning's first over. The wicket Middlesex really wanted was the one of Balance, the inspirational number 5, who's been scoring runs for fun in the last year or so. Twice Middlesex thought they had him as they again tried to balance this game up, but appeals by Stephen, Finn and Dexter for LBWs were not answered in the affirmative. Balance had begun this day with just 10 runs to his name, but once settled in, he once again began to look very good, in partnership with new man Adil Rashid. Any hopes that the home side had of getting a host of early wickets to give themselves a reasonable last innings run chase were soon diminishing, as this pair worked the ball around against the usually well-disciplined Middlesex attack. Yorkshire earned a first innings advantage of 55, and with these two seeing out 20 overs, in which they added 72 runs, that lead moved on to a very handy 343. Rashid had made a brisk 43 when he was the 6th man to fall when he went fishing, and nicked a delivery from Tim Murtagh behind. Balance made a name for himself in T20 cricket in this country when his ability to strike sixes was noticeable. His first of 6 maximums in this wonderful innings took him to another 50 off 94 balls, an innings which had thus far contained 7 other boundaries. By now he was looking really good and was getting some good support from Andrew Hodd as the runs continued to be piled on by the visitors. With plenty of time left in this match after the 2 short first innings, Yorkshire were looking to bat their hosts completely out of this contest, and these two took the total to 333 for a lead of 388. Some extra bounce from Finn did for Hodd, who offered James Harris a simple enough catch after making 22. Liam Plunkett followed for a duck in the next over, and the innings was just about completed when Ryan Sidebottom nicked Ollie Rayner behind. Balance was on 74 at the time, yet he was able to get to 130 with only last man Jack Brooks for company. Brooks scored 10 in a last wicket stand worth 66. Balance was simply superb. He's the only man to have netted more than 1,500 championship runs since the start of last season, and it's not hard to see why. These shots both carry the distance and then some, as the brilliant Balance neared yet another 100, the 21st in only 72 first-class matches. His recent figures are almost Bradman-esque. He belted Rayner back down the ground as he eased to that spectacular century. His first 50 occupied 94 balls, his second only 39, as he was putting his side out of sight. 14 fours and 3 sixes had been struck, yet he still wasn't finished. Some of his strokes were just enormous, with one going out of the ground. He struck sixes over cover, straight down the ground and over mid-wicket, as the Middlesex attack had no answer to him. Balance has been the form player of the last 12 months in the county game, and it will be hard to keep him out of the England side now when Sri Lanka come to town in June. Balance was playing these shots in front of one of the England selectors, Angus Fraser. It took a catch at 3rd man by Finn to get shot of him for 130, a wicket which gave Murtagh his 500th in the first-class game. Yorkshire were finally dismissed for 416, leaving Middlesex the massive target of 472 to win for a second match in a row. Had this edge from Sam Robson not dropped just in front of Adam Lyth in the slips, then Yorkshire would have been well on their way, but instead they were made to wait an age for their first success. Only once in their illustrious history have Yorkshire lost a match when setting so many, although that wasn't long ago when Peter Trigo went berserk at Taunton and helped chase down 479 on an extraordinary final afternoon of a game in Somerset. Middlesex's best ever chase at Lords to win a match was when they knocked off 366 to beat Sussex, but you have to go back to 1926 to remember that one. but conditions were such on a pitch which must have flattened out over the past couple of days that Rodgers and Robson hadn't given up the game just yet. On days like this, Rodgers is an almost unstoppable force. He was first to his 50, which was made off only 58 balls. It was reached with his 9th boundary, but he'd learned from balance that once in, runs could be scored fairly comfortably on this surface. Rodgers had raced easily onto 70 by the time that his partner Robson was raising his bat for another classy half-century. All the talk of a summer with England and possibly with balance as a teammate ahead hasn't upset Robson's rhythm. His 50 came off 81 deliveries, from which he'd struck 9 fours. Yorkshire's attack was not at its best, but that's to take nothing away from these two batsmen who were magnificent. Many a team would have looked beaten by now, but if anything it was the home side who started to look like favourites, as one boundary followed another. The partnership moved on to 181, which had been made in only 38 overs. Yorkshire's hearts must have been sinking a little. Before the partnership was broken, Rodgers had completed the 67th 100 of his extraordinary career. It won't be too long before he's amassed 22,000 first-class runs. This ton arrived off only his 110th delivery, which brought him his 19th 4. It was an exceptional innings from a man who's produced so many over the years. 45 minutes were left in the day when Brooks finally broke through by finding the edge of Robson's bat to send him back for 77. It was a knock which had given his side a real chance. Credit too has to go to Milan, who ensured that there were no other reasons for Yorkshire to celebrate before the day was brought to a close. Often a big partnership is followed by a couple of wee ones, but not on this occasion, as Milan and Rodgers saw out the remaining time to go to bed with their tails up. So records may go a-tumbling on the final day of this remarkable game. Another great advert for the LV County Championship. With Rodgers on 122 and Milan on 28, Middlesex will start again on 230 for 1, and that leaves them another 242 to get. If they do it, then they may prove to be a handful for all teams as this season continues.